Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Kellen here again with Droid Life. It is good to be back with you all. I know it's been a minute. We're here though with Samsung's newest phones, the Galaxy S21 line. We've got an S21 in house. We've got an S21 Ultra in house, and as we always do with these big, popular, important phones, we try to help you get the most out of them. So we'll have tips and tricks shortly, but first we want to start off with the first 10 things you need to do with your Galaxy S21. All right, so for those who are concerned that I have an S21 here and you may have an S21 Ultra or something like that, just understand that when we do these first 10 things videos, they pretty much apply to the entire line. So if you have an Ultra or a 21 Plus, the stuff we're going to talk about here applies to you as well. Also, if you have an S21 Ultra, look for a tips and tricks video on that very soon. And same thing said for that. S21 Ultra tips and tricks basically all apply to here, outside of maybe some S Pen stuff, maybe a camera trick or two, but we'll get you covered. These videos will cover everyone. The first thing we want to tell you though about is gestures. Now, I'm pretty sure you guys know how to work these, but Android adopted full gestures to navigate the phone. You'll notice I don't have the 3-button setup down here. If you're coming from like a Galaxy S8 or an S9 or maybe even a Note 10 or an S10, you may not have gone with the gestures just yet. If you haven't, we're going to show you how to use those. It's time for us all to kind of move into gestures if we want to. So how these work is, well, you open something, and if you want to go home, you swipe up from the bottom. You can see there's this little, it's not really a button. It's like a gesture area, that little white line there. So again, if you go into something, swipe up, we go home. Okay. So if we load something up like Chrome here and we tap on, like a story and it goes to a page and we want to go back, there's no back button. You swipe that, it takes you back. You guys understand that? And again, we can go home. We can also swipe up and hold, and that gets us into our app switcher where we can dance around between different apps. You can swipe these away if you don't want them. You can tap on one. We can swipe up into this and tap on the little icon up here, and it shows us different options here, like open and split screen. So this is how you would do the split screen thing. You can close all. Samsung's throwing in some shortcuts down here to apps you might use often. You can scroll around here. You can obviously close all if you're one of those people who likes to keep everything closed at all times. But that's pretty much it. That's how the gestures work. Swipe up, hold, swipe in from the sides. I will also show you, while I swiped in over here to go back, you can also swipe from this side. So it depends on which hand you have. You guys get it. So anyways, gestures. I know this is sort of a basic thing, but I want to make sure as one of our first 10 things, you know how to work the gestures. That helps you work your phone. And with that out of the way, let's start hammering on some stuff. So we tend to tell you to set up security out of the box. The first 10 things you need to do, security is one of the most important things. If you lose your phone, drop it, somebody steals it, you don't want them to just be able to swipe up and enter your phone and get all of your information. So on this phone, we have both a finger unlock, fingerprint reader, and this is a new and improved one, by the way. And then you also have face unlock. Of course, you can, swipe up and you should have a pattern, password, PIN, something like that. I just have a pattern on mine. And then of course I also have the fingerprint. And again, it is pretty fast. So you should set this stuff up. And when you walk through the initial setup of your phone, you should find most of this stuff as a part of that setup. And you should do it then. If you don't, this is how we come back to it. So I swiped down here, went into settings. You have lock screen and biometrics and security. Biometrics and security, this is where, well, you would set up your face recognition. You tap on that. Mine's already set up, but you tap on that, it'll show you a circle that you put your face in, and in about 3 seconds, it'll record your face, and then face unlock works. Fingerprints are in here. And if you want to add more, this is where you would tap add, and then you would, start placing your finger on the spot. Once it'll show up here, there we go. You just start placing your finger and it'll read your whole finger. You guys get that? That's kind of it. You set up fingers. I set up both thumbs because it's here on the screen. I also set up an index finger in case you ever have that handy. This is where you can turn off if you don't want it to actually unlock your device. Maybe you have fingerprints there for just, signing into apps or payment services or something like that. So you can turn it off there if you want to. Fingerprint always on. That you notice my little shortcut there on the lock screen. If you don't want that, you can turn that off as well. Particularly on where it's on the always on display. You may not want to see that at all times. So there's your fingerprints. Again, set up those, set up your facial recognition, and then we'll head into the lock screen. So the lock screen, Well, first of all, you'll have to choose a pattern, password, PIN, that sort of thing. You get to choose which one you want. Don't do swipe. You can see it says right there, no security. So set up one of these, right? And then for biometrics, you can control where those work if you want them to work on the lock screen, I should say. So I have my face registered and I have fingerprints registered. If you don't want your face unlocked to work, turn it off here. If you don't want your fingerprints, you can kind of decide which one you want. I use both just because it's kind of a convenience thing. But in this lock screen, another section here we want to talk about is this, the always on display. So when your phone is sitting in this state, you can have it like I do, where it always shows the clock and the calendar. And if you have notifications handy, if you don't want it to show that much information, or maybe you're worried about battery life with it displaying that all the time, you can tweak some stuff. So number one, you can turn the whole system off right here if you want to. But if I tap on this, you can have it tap to show for 10 seconds, show always, or show as scheduled only during certain times. Like maybe you don't want it to show at night or in dark situations or whatever. So you can customize how that works. I just like mine to show as always, so I can glance over and, see my phone and what time it is and if I have notifications. You can change the clock style in here though, if you really want to get custom with it. Multiple clock options. You can change the color of those clocks, things like that. You can even put, animated GIFs and things like that behind it, themes, that sort of thing. You can kind of go wild with it. They've really improved always on display. You can have it show music information. I actually do want that on. Auto brightness control for that. So if you get in a dark situation, it should dim those characters down that are on there. So always on display. It's just such an important Android feature at this point. I can't imagine you wouldn't want to use it. Maybe you just want the tap to wake. Go with that. Some other things in here though, notifications. So you want to control this. I have on my lock screen to show full details of my notifications. If you don't want it to do that, and you want maybe a little more privacy, you can change that to icons only, and it'll just show you apps that have notifications. In case someone touches your phone and wakes it, you don't necessarily want them to read all of your notifications. Change it to icon only. I leave mine as detailed because I don't really have that worry. You can also change how this looks depending on your wallpaper if you want it more or less transparent. If you wanted to better match with whatever wallpaper you're using, you kind of do that here. So anyways, that kind of covers your always on display and your lock screen. These are just those entry points to your phone. You want to have security and then you want to have information. It's up to you to decide how much information you want on there, but we do a lot on Android from our lock screens and that always on display because notifications are so powerful. So make sure you get all of this ready to go and you will be set going forward. So let's back on out of here a little bit and actually go back to this main settings menu. So we're going to talk for a little bit about display. And when I'm talking about display, I'm talking about, your big, beautiful display that comes with your Galaxy S21 phone. So there's a whole bunch of settings in here that are quite important. Number one up top is you have light or dark themes. You can manually switch to these at any time. And that turns you from a light background in settings and in some apps to dark. So it looks like this. A lot of people like dark. Number one, it eases eye strain. And number two, it potentially saves battery life. I actually have mine scheduled to work. So if I go in here to dark mode settings, I have mine scheduled to come on at 7:30 p.m. and then turn off again the next day at 7 a.m. So you do whatever you want. You can also have it do sunset to sunrise if you want, or you can leave it dark all the time or whatever. You guys get the point there. Adaptive brightness. This is just one of those things where your phone tries to learn your usage pattern. So as you adjust brightness, depending on apps or time of day, that sort of thing, it'll kind of adjust those then for you on the fly. So maybe you don't have to touch it as much. I usually leave it on. Motion smoothness is an important one. Your phone has 120 hertz refresh rate display. It's actually a variable refresh rate, but it goes up to 120 hertz. And as you can see in the example up here, it just makes everything smoother. This is one of those big advancements in smartphones. Every phone used to be 60 hertz, which is fine. But once you see 90 hertz or 120 hertz in action, it's pretty hard to go back to 60 hertz. You will notice the difference. And since this has 120 hertz, it's very, very noticeable. So make sure adaptive is checked here. Standard will drop you back to 60 hertz and things just won't look as nice. So throw on adaptive. Some other things in here, eye comfort shield. This is sort of a weird naming of this feature now. It's just, I'll show you. If you turn it on, it's the night light, the blue light filter. We're now calling it eye comfort shield. So in here, this is good to just use at night. Again, it reduces that blue light which is why it used to be called a blue light filter and could help ease eye strain, that sort of thing. It does look much better sometimes at night. Again, you can schedule it. It can be adaptive, on, off, whatever you want to do there, but it is one of those handy things. Screen mode. This is where you just kind of set up your color profile for your phone for the day or for going forward. I leave mine at vivid because I like those extra color pops. If you don't like it to look so wild, you can go ahead and go with neutral. If you do have it on vivid, you can control your sort of coolness, your warmth, get you a little more custom look there. Another thing in here that I tend to turn off on Samsung phones that you may enjoy is Edge Panel. This might actually be on out of the box, but Edge Panel on is, well, this little thing. It's like a side menu you can pull out with app shortcuts. You can see I have some app pairs in here that I may want to launch all at the same time if I'm in split screen mode. I use these on tablets, the Galaxy Z Fold 2. With a phone, I've never found them that useful, but you may find them very useful. So edge panels, there's a bunch of stuff you can set up in here. It doesn't have to just be app shortcuts. You can have people's shortcuts and some other tools or your tasks like setting alarms. You can have the weather. There's all sorts of stuff. This is one of those features that's been around for a long time with Samsung phones. I've just never really adopted it that much, but you can adjust the position of this thing, transparency of it, all of that stuff typically. Anyway, it's one of those things that I'll let you decide if you want to do or not. The navigation bar. Now I know I said I wasn't really going to talk about this, but if you need those three navigation buttons, they are right there. So that's pretty much it for display stuff. Get that nice and set because I mean, your display, you look at it all day, right? Now we'll go ahead and jump into sounds and vibrations. Again, we're still just in this settings area. So sounds and vibrations, Samsung gives you some cool tools to kind of customize the sound experience. And in a lot of ways, I really just care about the vibration stuff. But I obviously have my phone on vibrate. You can add sound, you can have it muted or whatever. And you have a volume control, and I'll show you that in a second because it is a little bit different on the S21. But here's your ringtone and your notification sounds. You adjust those as needed. But call vibration patterns, you can adjust these to find maybe a vibration pattern that you recognize more and you understand that that's a call. The idea there is to set it to something that's maybe different from your notification so you know when there's a call just by the vibration. One thing you may want to do is adjust vibration intensity. I do this on almost all phones. So incoming call I have set to vibrate pretty wild. Notification, I definitely want to turn that down a little bit. And then touch interaction. This is just as you're moving around your phone, gestures and touching on things, how strong you want it. I noticed the vibration motor to be, well, it wasn't that nice on this phone, so I turned it way down so that hopefully I just didn't notice it as much. But again, play with those. Notifications when sitting on my desk, I don't necessarily need it to vibrate off my desk, but when a phone call does and it may be across the room, it would be nice to hear that. You'll also find just your other sound settings in here. So for headphones, for gaming, all that stuff is in here. So if you use headphones a lot, you game a lot, even if you just use the external speakers on your phone a lot, you may want to dive in here and just find some additional stuff. Now, I did say I was going to talk about volume controls for a second. So volume controls on this phone, they're not weird, but they just might look a little bit different. So as I adjust these, you see this 3-dot menu up at the top. I don't know if you missed that. 3 dots up there. So if I tap on that, actually lets me then adjust volume for a bunch of things. So here is where your volume is for your ringtone and notifications. And if I just tap on these buttons at the bottom, it mutes things. So like this is my media volume. If I tap that, it goes to silent. This is my ringtone and notification. If I tap that, that's how I get to these different profiles of vibrate or volume up or down. And then these are your system volumes over here. So you can adjust these by just dragging these sliders, but you can also just touch these things. And that's kind of how you get that. If I tap on that, it gives you even finer controls. That was that setting button at the top. And you can also change it down here to use volume keys for media. So you notice my volume keys, let me back out of here. If I adjust these, this is just media by default. If you don't necessarily want it to do that and you change it here, now when I adjust the volume, it does that notification and call volume. That makes sense. So anyways, the volume controls, they're not super weird. They're just a little bit different than you might have seen in the past. I promise that we'll get out of settings here shortly, but we've got some more to talk about. So if we scroll down a little bit, there's a bunch of other things that we'll get to in a minute, like wallpapers and themes and home screen. I'll get to those in just a minute. We've talked about some of this stuff, but I want to go down here to advanced features. So Samsung has built in for a number of years a bunch of advanced features, and they're kind of those features that don't really fit in other categories, which I think is why they call them advanced. Like calling and texting on another device. If you have a supported Samsung device, like a Galaxy Tab S7, you turn that on, and then through your Tab S7, you could get calls and texts that would normally be routed through your phone, if that makes sense. Continue apps on other devices, sort of the same thing. If you have like a Galaxy Tab S7 and you're browsing on the internet, you can actually pick that spot up from your phone on your tablet, which is kind of cool. Link to Windows, you may have this, you may find this in handy. There is an app called Your Phone. It's a companion app that works on Windows and on all Android phones, but Samsung has built-in integration with it. And what that allows you to do is access your phone on your Windows PC, all of your apps, calls, photos, all of that stuff. It's actually a pretty handy app, especially if you like snap screenshots or take photos and want to access them immediately on a computer. It's good for that. Or if you want to like run Instagram from your phone on your computer, you can do things like that. And obviously the calling and texting is big there. So look at these three. They're kind of those features that allow your phone to work in more places, which is pretty cool. So here's some things we should customize though. So side key. So the side key, we're talking about this key right here. So pressing and holding, you could have it wake Bixby if you want. Samsung's Bixby I haven't used in about 17 years and probably won't ever. So I turn it off and change the power button if a long press to just getting me into the power button, which is this, okay? You can have it launch Bixby if you want. I don't want it to do that. The double press is my favorite though, and that's quick launch camera, open Bixby, or open any app. You can customize this, but that's just a double tap on power and launches you into the camera. That's what it's kind of been default on Android for a while, so I'm just so used to it that that's what I leave it as. But anyway, that's how you customize your side key. Motions and gestures. So here's just a bunch of stuff you may want to read the description and look at. Like lift to wake means when you pick up your phone or out of your pocket and lift it up, it'll wake up. I just leave that off, but you might find that handy. Double tap to turn on your screen. That's a good one. Just double tap your screen. It wakes up. Double tap to turn off your screen again is also another good one. Keep screen on while viewing just means it recognizes that your face and your eyes are staring at it, and it will try to keep the phone awake. Palm swipe to capture might be one you want. That's just talking about screenshots. Basically, you just swipe your palm across your phone, across the screen. It'll take a screenshot of whatever you're doing. Of course, you can always just hit power and volume down at the same time, and that will take a screenshot. So you don't necessarily need that, but it might be easier if you only have one hand or something like that. Let's see. One-handed mode is pretty self-explanatory. Bixby routines. Again, I don't use Bixby, so you might have to look elsewhere for your Bixby tips and tricks. I just don't really cover those. If you are a big screen recorder person, there is a whole settings menu for it now, where you can turn off and on the screenshot toolbar, which is this thing down here, which gives you some editing tools on the fly. You can also adjust your screen recorder stuff to record as far down as 480p. You can have it record media sounds or not. But there's a whole bunch of stuff in here if you're one of those screen recorder folks. This is where you find your game launcher if you're a big gamer and you want to have access to apps and things like that. And those are the advanced features on your Samsung Galaxy S21. Next up, then, I want to talk battery. So there is a battery and device care section in here. And if we tap on that, it goes through this whole thing where it looks at your phone and sees if it's running optimally and all of that stuff. And it gives you a score. It says maybe you want to close some background apps and things like that. I don't know how useful this actually is. Maybe just reboot your phone every once in a while if the numbers look weird. But where I do want to talk about though is battery. So if I tap on battery, this takes you into your battery usage statistics and all of that. But there's some other things in here. So number one would be in more battery settings. You'll notice my battery up here shows my percentage. If you want to see that at all times rather than just a battery meter, you can toggle it on in here, or if you don't want it to show that, you just toggle it off here. I just like to see a percentage versus, that weird little icon. Show charging info, show battery level at estimated time until full when always on display is off or on. Either way, this is just sort of an estimate when you plug in your phones, what we're getting at. It'll tell you how long it might take to actually charge up your phone. I want to talk about battery and adaptive battery stuff in particular, though. So adaptive battery says limit battery usage for apps that you don't use very often. That's great. This is kind of a standard Android feature. But why I want to talk about it is because I feel like this is an issue with OnePlus and Samsung phones. And the thing is, they have these battery restrictions on background processes that often limit apps from running properly. And what I mean by that is like sending you notifications and things. So what I'm suggesting you do here is use your phone for a little bit, leave adaptive battery on because it might extend battery life. But if you're noticing like Gmail, you're not getting notifications, or your texting app or WhatsApp or whatever it is, you're not really getting notifications timely unless you like wake your phone up. Think about tweaking some stuff. So if I go into how about the calendar? Okay, so I go into calendar and see how there's this battery section right here, and I tap on battery. Number one, you wanted to allow background activity if you needed to run in the background, but see how it says optimize battery usage, and I tap on that and it takes me into this section where there's all of these apps in here that these are the ones that are not optimized. But if it's optimizing, that means it could be limiting. So I can scroll in here and sure enough, there's calendar. Well, I don't really want it to optimize calendar because I just missed a meeting. So I would turn that off. Now it's not optimizing my calendar, and hopefully all of my notifications, come through in a more timely manner. So that's sort of the idea there. And again, I usually turn it off for Gmail, my Google Voice, sometimes my dialer, text messaging apps, those things that I want notifications instantly from, I turn it off. So it's kind of a tip that you may want to consider, mostly just because, again, these things kind of limit stuff in the background that maybe you don't want them to. So one other thing in the settings area, and this is totally up to you if you want to use this or not, but if you go into general management and you choose autofill service, you can see I have mine set to Google. Out of the box, most Samsung phones have autofill with Samsung Pass. I could not tell you what Samsung Pass is, but I do know that Google stores all of my passwords through Google Chrome and that sort of thing. So you may want to switch to that as you go about filling up your apps and signing into them the first time, or if you're in Chrome or whatever and you want access to those passwords, you're going to want to change your autofill service to Google. And look, if you're a big Samsung user and they're somehow storing your passwords, I don't even know how they do that. That is where you would find that as well. So let's go to the home screen now, shall we? Now, I don't want to spend too much time here. I think you guys probably know how to set up your home screen after all these years. It's Android, so a lot of the basics haven't changed. But long pressing is obviously an important thing. This is how you quickly change wallpapers, your theme, add a widget. If you need to know how to change a widget, you just go through here, find one you want, tap on it. There may be multiple options, find the one you want from there, and then you hit add, and it'll just add it to a home screen. If you want to get rid of that widget, you long press on it. There is a remove button, you remove. Now I have this blank page. If I want to get rid of that, I can long press, or you can actually pinch on it. That'll kind of zoom you out. You can see there's a trash can, tap the trash can. If I want to add a page, I can add a page. I don't want to, but you guys get it. These are kind of basic things, right? You can drag and drop. And I know that like this is a really basic thing, but I see a lot of people's Android phones where it looks like they have the same setup that was delivered to them out of the box. You can change that, homie. You really can change that. Like, look over here, I have folders for all sorts of different things. I've named them. You guys get that, right? Anyway, so one thing to think about, though, is if I swipe over here, I have Google Discover now for the first time on a Samsung phone. So if I long press and swipe over here, I have two options. I can turn this page off if I want, but Google Discover is Samsung free. Samsung free, no. Just use Google Discover. It'll at least give you current news and things like that. So check that box. That is an important one. So anyway, that's your home screen setup. You guys get that, right? Oh, swipe up to get into your app drawer. For some reason, Samsung does this horizontal paginated thing, which is awful. You can swipe down and that'll bring down your notification area. Swipe up to get in here. Swipe down. That's like a nice little shortcut tip trick. Anyway, Samsung, can we do the vertical scroll? This is awful. But the other thing I want to talk about from here is up here, the notification area. Very important area. You spend a lot of time here on Android, so the first thing I always tell you to do is set up your quick settings shortcuts. So if I pull this down, you can see there's a whole bunch. There's pages upon pages of shortcuts to do things. The most important ones, though, are the first 6. So when I do my first swipe down, I have 6 shortcuts up there, right? So you want to set up your first 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down to here, right? So I tap this menu and I tap edit buttons. And then this kind of takes me into an editor, and I can drag and move these things around however I see fit. And then those are in the order. So again, I like these 6 to be first because they're the ones I use the most often. Actually, I'm going to move flashlight over because I've been missing that. So now it's in my top 6. There's some other quick shortcuts up here. If you want to grab these, you can bring them down and just drop them wherever. You can kind of change this layout so that it suits you. There's shortcuts in here for like link to windows that I showed you, and decks if you want to use that. Live caption is a great feature. Here's always on display if you want to toggle that on and off. There's all sorts of stuff. But anyway, the most important ones are those first 6 and then probably this first page. There's some other things though. So if I tap this and I go into quick panel layout, couple of things. Show brightness control above notifications, show devices and media buttons, and then show devices and media buttons above notifications. None of these actually make sense, so I'm just going to show you. So this one, the brightness, and this area here with show devices and buttons. I'll show you my setup so that maybe that makes sense. What they're talking about is when I swipe this down the first time, it's right here. My brightness is right here. If I didn't have that toggled, I would have to swipe it again. It would be up here. Same thing with devices and media. If I don't have all those things toggled, they're just kind of buried up here in that second swipe. Whereas now I can access them with one swipe. It's kind of all you're getting there. And they're pretty handy things. You know, it's dragging your brightness slider around comes in handy a lot. Devices, if you set up, you know, your smart things, your Google Home shortcuts there and there, or your media controls if you listen to a lot of music. So setting those things is a pretty handy thing. All right, I wasn't sure we'd get here, but here we are, the final section. So opening camera, double tap on power. Let's go into the camera. Just want to show you some general settings to be aware of. This isn't a tips and tricks on how to use your camera. The first thing is this bottom area. These are all your modes, right? So photo, portrait, night. Out of the box, it might just say photo and video. So you might want to add some stuff to it. And by doing that, you swipe all the way over here to more. And if you want to add something like pro mode, you just long press and grab it and drop it down here. And then once it's down here, you can actually drag it and move it around. If you want, you can rearrange all of this stuff. You click save, and you know, if I swipe over here, now photo and pro mode are here. Pro mode is. If you want to get rid of something, you just swipe on back over, hit this plus button, which I know doesn't make any sense, but that gets you into the editor of it. So I can grab pro again and drop it back up here, click save, and now it's gone. So anyway, you want to get this set up. So photo is your normal mode. I take lots of portrait and night shots as well, so I have those right off to my left. Single take is just one of those fun modes. If you're out and about and you want to see what your camera is capable of, snap one of those. I think you'll have some fun with it. Some other things, obviously you have the 3 trees down here. I like to call them the 3. It's like the 3 seashells from Demolition Man. So the single tree is your zoom camera. The middle double tree here is your normal shooter, and the triple tree is your wide angle. You can see it's starting to bring in other things here. There's also other zoom levels in here, but that's kind of how you get between your different 3 lenses that you have on the back of your fancy phone here. Up top, you just have some settings like your ratio and your timer and your flash and things like that. This is your filter thing. Please don't use that. Tapping on settings though, a couple of things to be aware of in here. Scene optimizer. It says right there, automatically optimize your shots for the scene. If you don't like what Samsung's camera is doing during scenes, you might want to turn that off. Up to you. Shot suggestions, same thing. It says get on-screen guides to help you line up great shots. If you think it's offering bad suggestions, just turn that off, okay? QR codes, though, you definitely want to leave that on. We live in a time where QR codes are popping up more and more to help us do stuff without actually having to touch anything. So if you have that on and a QR code shows up somewhere in your life that you need to scan, just open your camera and point it at it, and it will read it and give you a link or some sort of action you can complete there. You should definitely do it. There's some more advanced options and stuff in here. I'm going to leave that up to you photogs and videographers. Video stabilization, you should probably leave that on. Auto HDR, leave on. Tracking autofocus, I believe, is off out of the box. What that does is allow you to tap on an object and it starts tracking it from that moment. In case it's a kid, an animal, whatever, and they start moving, it will hopefully lock on and keep them in focus. Grid lines, I'm a big grid lines fan to line up shots, so I do leave that on. There's your location tags if you want your photos tagged or not. That's pretty much it. Your camera, important. Make sure it's ready to go at all times. We'll have tips and tricks later, but for now, we are Droid Life. This was your first 10 things for your S21. It's good to be back. Peace.